will give where it came from in England and how it was done in the smaller parishes, but you would come in, even for Holy Communion, there wasn't processionals, there wasn't a procession cross. That didn't come in till the turn of the century, of the last century, not this one. And so they would come in, like Beaver Dam in Virginia is a very great example of our old Virginia churches, our colonial churches as well. And you came in a back door, and there's a pulpit and a little tiny altar in front. Really went into the times and the views of the people being very, very, very low church. There was no altar cross, there was none of that. Now, one of the great ways, and I've picked this up and I find this very helpful, is I had my church on Kent Island, and in my other churches that I've been at for doing this, we have usually a side door, or if you don't have a side door coming into the altar area, the front area, you would already be pre-seated up in the front. Now, one of the ways is great for Holy Communion, and because I didn't do processions, didn't have processional cross to do it to begin with, but I always find it was very good to give a cue that we were getting ready to get started. I kept the bell by the door. I walked in, gave a little bell ring, and that let everybody know that we were ready to start. All right. Mm-hmm. We are going to still go up and make our introduction to morning prayer or whatever we're going to do, but it's a key point. Now, I was talking to, and I'm going to jump into this later on into when we do Holy Communion, but I also do come out 10 minutes before any service, and always morning prayer, Holy Communion, remind the congregation that this is a quiet time to allow people for a time of prayer and reflection coming into church. This is not a chat time. Now, I don't say it in that exact format. I'd say it in a little nicer way. But, you know, you get, if you will listen when you come in, especially if you've got bigger congregations, you'll hear a lot of chitter-chatter going on.
This church is noisiest when it's full of clergy.
Yeah, that too. They're the worst.
My lot have learned that once the candles are lit, you shut up.
And we're going to go over, Archbishop's going to be working on that segment. We're going to do that here a little later on, as processions, candles, all of that. We worked on a lot of that last night. We were there till 10 o'clock in my chapel working, trying to get him ready for his diaconate exams and stuff like that and his reviews. So very good to go in and remind everybody. And people, like you said, once the congregation really knows, once the candles are lit, it is quiet time. But also this little bell.
I'll confiscate that
is a good little way to kind of let everybody know that you're getting ready to get started. It grabs their attention. It's a thing that helps people change the way that they're thinking. Changes the way to get their mindset that we're going. So a lot of times if we walk in and we just go up to the front and we start, we're kind of catching them off guard in a way. Even though that they know that they are there for morning prayer or evening prayer or Holy Communion, we want to pre-prep our audience. So this is actually a sales technique, marketing technique. The bell is just that. There for them to kind of put them in the right state of mind. I'm not saying you have to do that, remember, but this is just something.
You need something.
You need something.
For you, it's the candles.
For us, it's the candles, and I usually go to my stall a few minutes before time. And when I appear, even the one or two who don't really get the picture,
Yeah, but being a bishop, he kind of scares people, so, that kind of natural.
I'm actually kind of hidden up there because I'm behind the lectern.
Yes.
So when we come in, and now this is something that I was going to show you guys up there, and I've spent a lot of times, because he is now an officiate in our order, we've spent the past 6 months every week meeting with Noah and them, and we literally spent months working on morning and evening prayer. And then we just started the class for performing the offices for Latimer. And, you know, every church is unique, every church is different. We need to be prepared for that type of church. Now, the great thing is when you're in a beautiful church like this, you have kneelers up front. You have a place to go. You already know. Now, is your preferred, and I know this is pretty standard, preferred to be on the gospel side for your kneeler for saying the morning or evening offices?
No, the senior cleric present goes first stall on the south side.
On the south side, okay. I know a lot of people, it's always set up for some reason on this side. I do the opposite side.
That's a relic of three-decker pulpit times, because usually the three-decker pulpit was on the north side of the church.
You see, and here's the great thing about having him, and this is what we're missing in our lecture series to you. I'm giving you tradition, all the stuff that I've seen. He can give you the history, walking encyclopedia of where this stuff comes from. But I like to be on the same side as the epistle because I can go up and do the readings. It's right there. Now, so in this church, you happen to have a kneeler. It's set up. You're going to be at your spot to do that. If you do not have kneelers, you can always set up a chair and then have a kneeling pad. I hate to break the news to you guys. If there is no kneeler pad, guess what you do?
Hit the garbage.
You hit.
You just said? No, I'm just playing.
We talked about this last night. We're going to go over this as acolytes. When you're up there and you're serving, you're kneeling the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a kneeler, great. If you don't, you don't. It's part of the process. It's part of the, I call it the suffering for Christ. But you will kneel. Now, other cases, we're in very small churches. Many of our churches are very small altar in the front. There's no room. Literally, the regular chairs or pews is literally right there. You sit in the front pew. Okay? If you can get a chair and set it up there, great. Like at St. John's that we had in Maryland, a lot of times, because there was enough people and it was a little hard, because between the front pew and the altar rail was like that distance.
Yeah.
And so I would just go to the altar rail and kneel there to lead morning prayer. Okay? So your positions when you walk into a church are going to vary. Do not think in your mind, this is the greatest thing, when you're walking in and you're doing services at different churches, you have to adapt very quickly on the fly and take a quick look at the church, decide what you are going to do and how you're going to do it. And you can't be dragging on. And the other thing is, you know, this is very important, and I think Father Mike will tell you, the bishop will tell you, you know, even if you're visiting, that congregation wants to see confidence in you, like you know what you're doing. If you're coming in, that's why last night we talked about this, practice. You have to be able to walk in and show confidence, show that you know what you're doing. You might be making this up on the fly, but they don't know that.
Yep.
They do not know that a single bit. So when you walk in, assess your area, decide what you're going to do, and act like it's normal for you. Okay? So
Never let on that you're puzzled.
never let on. Now, the other thing, we talked about this for a minute, is when you walk in, find that senior lay person or who's kind of ever in charge, and ask specific questions on how they do morning prayer or evening prayer or Holy Communion. So what is your standard here for doing this? Do you say the Psalms by alternating verses? You know, all of that. You'll have some key questions that you do? Do you already have lay people appointed for doing the readings? Who are those lay people? Then you go and meet with each one of those lay people and make sure, first of all, you've done your homework, you've done your study, you have your little bulletin made, you have your readings done, and then you go up and make sure that each lay person, this doesn't matter if you're visiting or this is in your own congregation, you're going to verify they know the reading, and it's already marked in the book up front. The worst thing you can do is have somebody stumble, or you have to correct somebody in the middle of service and say, this is the wrong reading. Because what did you just do? You just embarrassed the person in front of the whole congregation. They're not going to want to come and do that again.
Usually what I tend to do when somebody, unless it's something I really can't turn a blind eye to, I just let it go.
Yeah.
So, please do your prep work when you get to the church. Get there early, be ready, you've done your homework. So we have now gotten to the beginning of Holy Communion. Of morning prayer or evening prayer. All right. One of the things that I really like to do, and I've mentioned this several times, what is the age of your congregation?
Mine,
No, what is the age of most of our congregations?
elderly.
Elderly. What is the one thing they have a problem with?
Kneelings,
Hearing. All right. So we will get in a lot of instances where a lot of guys are maybe way up in the front somewhere and they never look to the congregation. They're kind of...
And the 11th commandment is the deafest person in the congregation sits in the second to rear pew.
That's always the case. I do more movement in my service than most guys do. Just because I've learned, I've had so many congregations where people are elderly, or in a lot of instances, we have new people. Okay, and I want to make sure that people can understand what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah.
I know it was something thrown on you, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but you need to listen to the commands given. So you missed his understanding of how we were doing the Psalms this morning. Now, I know that was brand new, and it took me 30 seconds to figure out what he was saying, because it's an English thing. It's not an American thing. We're not getting into that.
No, normally what happens when we're in the main church, we usually read the Psalms by alternate half verses, because it eliminates the odd numbers problem.
Yeah. So I will go down into even if I'm kneeling somewhere, I will, when I stand, I come in and I go, good morning, everybody. Welcome to St. John's. And, kind of make it like a regular announcement, letting people know where you are. You don't want to come in there and just rush in there. I'm trying to build a little connection with everybody, make everybody comfortable for a second. It's not like we're rushing in there and say, and let us all please turn to page 3 for the beginning of morning prayer. All right, so, we've kind of sit there, we let the group know, and then I am very big on this, and I teach this in church growth. One of the ways that you will lose, and we're going to talk about this communion, is when we are in churches, everybody's there forever. The priest never announces the page, never announces what we're doing, and you get that new person in there, and they're like, what? And everybody's just blah, 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 all the way through.
I'm a left eyeball person. If out of the left eyeball I see somebody's face I don't recognize, I will punt some page numbers out. However, what I tend to give them is, for the communion service, page 67, then before I read the collect, where the collect, epistle, and gospel are, and then after the collect, epistle, and gospel, I say the Nicene Creed is on page 71, and after that they're on their own. I'm not, you've got to hit the happy medium between driving the ordinary worshippers crazy by bawling page numbers out half the time, and giving enough of a cue to visitors that they don't get totally lost.
Correct, and remember, the first thing we talked about is knowing your audience, knowing the church you're at. I have just gotten in the regular habit of announcing what we're doing in a nice, clean, flowing way. So, we were going to go on and say, and let us all please turn to page 6 for the general confession and say it together. And then, a lot of times for the absolution, I probably won't say anything because it is something that I am just going to be standing up and going. Now,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you can skip the absolution?
no, I said, I'm just not announcing the page. Like I'm going to go and say page 7 for the absolution. Because we're already at the bottom of page 6. You're open up to a double page. We're not like sometimes in communion, we're doing different stuff at the very beginning of Holy Communion. Some we might be doing the Decalogue. Sometimes we might do the summary of the law and adding the carry and with the response in the middle. This particular case, I don't go through and announce like every single thing, but I do like if I'm moving or we're getting ready.
Skip a couple of pages, worth giving them a heads up.
Give them a heads up on major stuff as we're more moving through. So let's talk about, we've done the general confession, we've said that together. Remember the important thing is, and please work, because I see this a lot, you are Almighty and most merciful Father, then everybody joins in. All right. If you're like my dad, he likes to start right when I start. We need to get in the habit.
Just ignore it.
I ignore it. I don't correct anybody, but I'm saying one of the things that when you are in your congregation, and we're not going to talk about this today, is talking about everybody being in a Bible study at your church and getting people involved in that. But one of the key points is also if you have a 9 o'clock, like services at 10, and you have that morning Bible study time or that morning service time, is every year just do a nice training session to go over training your congregation on morning prayer and evening prayer and Holy Communion, just to walk them through what's going on to give people understanding their right movements, what they are supposed to. Here's the number one thing that you will find in all of our congregations when it comes to this stuff. Nobody's ever taught them. You have people coming to church for 30 years, sitting in the same pew. My dad goes to church every Sunday. Still, until he started coming to my church, he never opened up the Bible. We never missed a Sunday, but my dad is a Sunday goer, and that's it. Doesn't read the Bible. He listens to the sermon. And that is the vast majority of our congregations today. The greatest enlightening tool. I did this for Holy Communion at my parish at St. Stephen's on Kent Island. And the funniest thing is it took us 2 months to get through Holy Communion because of all the questions. So teach your congregation's morning and evening prayer. That is one of the greatest things you can do. And I know that's a little rabbit hole that we jumped off into, but let's go into the absolution. For those that are lay readers.
It's the 21st of Trinity.
So, if you are not a priest, all right, you're going to turn to the collect for the
21st
Sunday in Trent, right here on page 218. I actually it'd been so long, I just recently had to email the Archbishop to ask him, because the Abbot Skipper had given us this originally, and then I've been in orders for so long, I totally forgot it.
The other alternative is the prayer for forgiveness on page 63.
So that is what you can do in replace of the absolution. Now, let's jump back to our morning prayer. Now, I go a lot more in depth when we're doing this on poor Zach, and I'm sure that you've had plenty of time on this, so I am not going to go through detail by detail here on that. We've gone through our Lord's Prayer. You guys have said that, open thou our lips. Here's the thing. We've gotten through our Lord's Prayer. Please, when you were saying these, definitely in a good, solid voice, very clean, repetitive, but make it sound like, oh Lord, open thou our lips. Don't sit up there and mumble and think, this is the cue for the congregation.
Yeah, that's why I speak up, because I have a tendency to mumble.
Yeah.
That particular building that you're in eats sound.
Yeah, I have a tendency to mumble, that's why.
Where are you at?
St. Timothy's with Paul.
Oh, in Coastal, okay.
Because it has, there's a type of church building that I call a Kleenex box. Kleenex boxes have usually acoustic tiling on the ceiling and carpet on the floor, and they eat sound.
Yeah.
They also have another slightly ruder nickname, which I won't share.
But remember, you're giving the congregation, communion or whatever, you're giving them cues. You're the director of the choir. You're giving them this nice, clean, different pitch sound than they're used to hearing the way you regularly say it. That's giving them this cue. All right? Because we are orchestrating our congregation to move in a particular direction. A lot of them, too, will be kind of half already into the zone, and they've just said that you want to grab their attention again. So, when you get to these different points, remember, it's an inflection point for you as well. Remember, and even though it says, and if it's written in the prayer book, everybody's going to read it. Remind everybody, and let us all please rise and say the Gloria together. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I do like to kind of remind people, give them a cue. We've switched pages. This is a good time with our reflection and then saying something to get that congregation kind of following back along with you, coming out. Because remember, the greatest thing that you'll find, and you'll look across there, and I think the Archbishop will kind of definitely, people are already zoning out. We're dragging them back in. I want to grab their attention. I want to bring them, and then I want to get them. And then let us all please stand.
I never do that. It drives me crazy.
Never tell people to stand.
No, I stand up, and you see, I'm up where I can be seen, and they follow me. And we just wait until everybody stands. And that makes the point just as not well. I don't like a lot of chat in services.
A lot of chat.
Chat, as in instructions. It's liturgy, it's not a bloody lecture.
And that's why we're here today, and that's why he's jumping in, because you're going to find a lot of different not opinions, but the way guys do things, and the way I've had a lot of church plants, a lot of younger groups, so I've always felt like I like to, in a way, be teaching as I go along, making sure people are done. My plant in St. Stephen's, we grew to over 25 people in a year. Everybody in the church except for were new to Anglicanism. So, again, I think he brings the reflection point back in to know your congregation, know your audience, who's there. If you're in a bunch of clergy and you probably need to do it more than you do for your congregation, but you don't need to say anything. You should be able, we're here, not really say anything and keep moving. All right. Now, I'm going to turn this over. I've gone over this with Zach, but would you flip into the beginning for our Psalms and lessons and kind of talk about that a little bit, talk about the double, the triple, some Sundays are triple
Right.
readings, kind of, now I told my guys, now I do pick out ones that there is a list. Peter Toon in his blue book did a very good job of doing that, is matching the lessons and the Psalms with your epistle and gospel readings. So they literally are,
Right.
a lot of times come out of that. But the 28 prayer book, these new lectionary readings,
Right, the 45 lectionary.
and I'm going to let him talk and kind of walk you guys through
The
this.
1945 lectionary on a weekday is a pain in the behind. It leaps around too much. That is a problem with both the authorised lectionaries. On a Sunday, you usually get 2 sets, very often 3 sets of lessons for morning and evening prayer. There is, on each Sunday, 1 set of morning prayer lessons is starred. And the star indicates that the Old Testament lesson accords with the Epistle and Gospel. So if you are doing morning prayer as a warm-up to communion, or you're doing what used to be jokingly called the pike rite, which is shortened morning prayer going straight into communion, you will do the starred lessons. A word of warning about the year 2 set when you've got 3. The year 2 set at evening prayer very often has the Gospel from communion as the second lesson. So I tend not to use those year 2 readings because we have communion service and evensong. So,
When you say year 2, what do you mean?
well, you've got 3, where you've got 3, you've got 1, 2, 3. So I tend to go year 1, year 2, year 3.
Oh,
Or first set, second set, third set. Second set in an evening when you've got 3 sets usually has the Gospel as a second lesson. Where you've got 2, you don't have a problem. So I tend to use the first set in odd-numbered years and either the second or the third set in even-numbered years, and just ignore the second set when there's 3. It eliminates a lot of those little quirks. The other thing you will see with the 1945 lectionary is the Psalms are generally picked to fit in with the lessons. And one little trick that it's worth remembering is that where you do have 2 Psalms, for example, this coming Sunday, the Psalms appointed for morning prayer are 3 and 62. And it's always worth at the end of the first Psalm telling them where the second Psalm is. So when you reach the end of Psalm 3, you just sort of stick your head over the parapet and say, we continue with Psalm 62 on page 413. And there's a bit of scrabbling around and they find it and off you go again. Other than that, do announce the lessons in the form given in the prayer book. Here begins the 13th verse of the 4th chapter of the book of the prophet Isaiah. That is the way it's done.
That's what the rubric says to do it.
Correct. Also, there is no thanks be to God at the end of the lessons in the prayer book. That is an annoying custom that has been transferred from the 1979 prayer book and the Roman Rite.
I told him, I said, yeah, I say it, and all these old Episcopalians that are in there, it's just natural.
All Pisky's doing.
And,
Pisky off the rest of us.
and I already told him, I said, but don't do that with the Archbishop, which I already did today. I said, he gets
I'm death on that one.
I said, he does not like that at all. So,
You see, I never did 1979 prayer book. Because growing up in England, we had the ASB 1980, which we tended not to use for morning and evening prayer.
Right.
Because it was awful. You are God and we praise you. You know, it was we have the Australians to blame for that translation. And actually, no, that one we're on Catholic, sorry. Yeah, I'm very, very, very strict about following prayer.
Was that a Dom Gregory Dix suggestion?
No, it's probably a Campbell Bushnini thing. Yeah, it comes from the Roman Reaper.
Yeah.
now that is one of the things we're going to now jump into on there. And I just wanted him to go over that Sunday thing. I pretty much explained it the same way, but I did not know that, since I don't use that one, never have used that one. I did not know the tidbit about some of the gospel readings matching up.
Yeah, I discovered it a couple of years ago. Just thought, oh, I really should use this year 2, the second set of lessons this year. And I looked and I went, half of the evensong ones tend to the gospel. That's not very helpful for preaching, particularly not as about half of my evening congregation are twices.
I mean, they go both times?
Yeah. The other thing you need to be aware of with morning and evening prayer is there are a set of invitatory sentences at the bottom of page 8. And there are very precise instructions given there when they are to be used. So there is one for the Sundays in Advent, there's one that is for Christmas through to Epiphany. Please use them. A little bit of variety in the offices is always welcome. I've got my lot singing it.
We did a very good job of talking about that and brought that in. And I said most guys that lead morning or evening prayer, even priests, glance right over them. Don't even pay attention that they're there, and just go. They're there for a reason, and
they point up for the most part. They point up feasts with proper prefaces.
yes, and these canticles, if you are doing the breviary or any of those style, you will literally almost find these there. So it wasn't like Cranmer just out of the blue.
Oh, that's not Cranmer. That's 1928 edition.
Yeah, but I'm just saying they weren't just picked. I didn't see that. I'm so used to seeing that in all mine. Just didn't pick these out of the blue. There's a lot of these that are in there. So let's jump on to talking about reading. And he brought in making sure that you follow that along. And you know, a lot of times you guys are going to be in a smaller group, so you will be doing the readings. All right. Now, if that is the case, I hope that you guys truly understand when you are reading them, you're reading them slowly, clearly, to the congregation, and you're taking your time, and we're not speed reading through that. Remember, the only person in a hurry to get through this is you.
Can lay people read the lessons?
Yes.
Yes. So if you're a licensed lay reader, that's what so part of being a licensed lay reader is for the ability also to do morning and evening prayer. If you are a licensed lay reader, that is one of the key things. And we don't really have one set up just yet, but the OEC and some of the other groups do have a certified lay reader program, and it is a very intense program before they will license you. Something that we've worked on for years, and hopefully eventually we will get into that where we go over all of this stuff. But yes, that is the other thing, is that, you know, you need to remember whoever's reading needs to be a licensed lay reader.
So pretty much they can't read now until that gets straightened out.
Okay, this is where we have a difference of practice. From my point of view, licensed lay readers are authorized to read the offices, the litany, the penitential office, and the burial office. You can grab any layman who can read reasonably, anybody who can read out loud efficiently can read a lesson.
Oh, good, so his predecessor here on the east.
Yeah, well, he was uptight.
Yeah, nobody could read, and law was you had to be a licensed lay reader.
Okay.
And so that's what I've always taught, and that's what I've always gone with, but if
What usually happens here is if Anthony is in charge, he'll grab a couple of guys out of the congregation to read the lessons. When I'm here, Anthony usually reads the lessons. You know, it's just to get a change of voice,
Right.
which is important with the readings.
now, I'm under always the, I like or opinion or however you want to classify it, because of coming out of the Episcopal Church. A lot of my stuff is more in the Episcopal style. We had lay readers, and that randomly rotated every Sunday or in communion to read the epistle, or if we had morning prayer or whatever, they were there. I've always made sure that everybody's a licensed lay reader until recently, 10 seconds ago.
Did they give you a card or something?
You get
A certificate?
a license every year, which annoys the heck out of me, having to do licenses every year.
So I do recommend, to get people involved in the service. I think that really helps out getting our congregation feeling they're involved in the church, making them feel that they are connected. But also, this is going to be my original point, is before you just pick somebody out of the blue, you have worked with them to make sure they understand the reading. And I've even heard some licensed lay readers that are horrible at reading. And I think all of us can say that's the case. Your job as a priest, a deacon, now you don't have the option. I mean, you could pick somebody, but we have a little bit more of the ability to sit down and nicely work with somebody to work with them on their reading. Before you bring somebody up to read in your church, or even somebody that's a licensed lay reader and you don't know them, please make the time to listen to them, go over that, make sure that they are reading it clearly and they are not speed reading through there, and that they are taking their time. We are reading the living Word of God. Let's give it the respect that it's due. And that is one of the main emphases that I always say. I'm working with Zach and Noah. We haven't quite gotten to the communion part yet, but it's the same way when you're reading the gospel, or the epistle, and you're a deacon, or you're a priest. We are showing the utmost respect for reading God's words. And to take that time to do it correctly. We wouldn't carry, I know this is a high church thing, but we wouldn't carry the gospel up high when we walk out if we weren't being reverent to the Word of God. So just remember to work with your people on doing that. Make sure they understand how to say the introduction in the prayer book. If they don't do it often, one of the greatest little tools that you can do, and I keep it up on several of my churches, I have taped for the epistle, and then if we were doing morning prayer, a little cheat sheet.
Yeah, I have a postcard that I stick in, yes.
Sit right there to help people to remember what their openings and how to pronounce it and say it. So all they got to do is fill in the blank. Because the most nervous thing for somebody, and you got to remember this, the most nervous thing is for a lay person to come up and speak in front of a church. For us, it's easy. Well, at the beginning it wasn't. I mean, everybody that's here that's seasoned clergy will tell you that first year or two, you're still like wanting to throw up in the trash can before you start, because you're just being nervous, like you're walking in there, oh my God, like this is all on me now? Holy mackerel. But, you know, make them feel comfortable, and that's where teaching is one of the key points that you get. Take the time to spend with them before you throw somebody up there. If we are visiting a new church for the first time and you're going in there, same way, talk to the person. If they're a regular reader, that's why I said, make sure they know what they're reading, what they're doing, talk to them. If you really feel like it's a smaller church, they really don't have anybody, or somebody just kind of starts hesitating when we said talk to the senior person at the church, oh, don't worry about it, I normally just read myself. That's something that you pick up on the fly. Don't feel to be pressured in to do this when you're doing morning prayer. Now, let's jump ahead. Any questions that anybody have on anything, feel free to jump in all the time. I think...
Does everybody say here beginneth you said earlier that you need to say the first chapter of...
Yeah, here beginneth.
Yeah, it's there in the rubrics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and this one trips me up fairly regularly. Here endeth the first lesson, here endeth the second lesson. I turn a blind eye when people just say, here endeth the lesson, because I trip myself up on that one.
Yeah, I do too.
When you get to the canticles, the first canticle at morning prayer is selectable according to season. It's nothing in the rubrics about it, but this is just a bit of advice from Grandad. As a rule, if the altar frontal is white or red, I use the Te Deum. If it is green, I use the Benedictus S. And because I'm sadistic, when it is violet, you get the Benedicite, but you get the short version of the Benedicite out of the hymnal.
And let's just jump back onto the Psalms real quickly. We kind of talked about that a little bit. You listened to, I wish I could chant as well as him. And we're going to work on that in the order as soon as we find somebody that can really work with us and teach us. Is, because I'm a horrible singer, they actually pay me not to sing in church. No, I'm serious. So we saw a version that he did today by alternating choir sides. That would not be something that we would normally get because we're not in a setup. I mean, if you look at this, even though it's got chairs and the rail, you're literally like looking like you're walking into an English church somewhere. You're literally like, oh wow, that's a setup, which is the coolest setup in the world. I wish we had that in our American churches, but we don't.
We used to, but Victoria used to tear it out with great enthusiasm.
Yeah, we put pews in everywhere. But so in the order, we take the Psalms as a song, like it says, sing the Psalms. And so we always stand and we say it in unison together. So that is one particular way. But the standard in pretty much America, and you can correct me on that in any other variation, is by half verse. And a lot of congregations will be sitting and saying it by half verse.
That
which
is the custom here on a Sunday.
Is the sitting down. I am personally not in favor, even if I'm going to do, I want everybody to stand. Because it is a song, we're a psalm, please stand. But remember, what did we just say at the very beginning? And I know I'm going to repeat myself 1,000 times a day. Please do as the custom at the church you're visiting or at the church you're at. So I will not walk into a church and go, well, let's all stand. So find out what they're doing. When you come in, again, I'm repeating myself, but I'm saying this over and over and over again for you to sink in, to remember, when you walk in the door, you got work to do. You know, these are the questions. We've talked about the readers. We've now talked about how they are doing the Psalms. All right, are they sitting? Are they standing? These are things you guys need to remember, and you're going to forget them the first time you go. And then you're going to find yourself, oh, I should have remembered what Father Patrick said. And then next time, well, these are things you learn the hard way if nobody tells you.
It's pretty safe to assume in the UEC that you're going to hit alternate half verses and sitting. Because that's the common low church, southern broad church custom. If you get anything different to that, file it under the weird file. Because basically around here, that's what you'll usually hit. The other thing you will usually hit with the canticles is that people are used to reading them. If they're read, they're used to reading them through, you know, the minister puts up the first half verse and then everybody joins in and reads the whole thing together.
Unison.
Yeah.
Yes.
First canticle I indicated, Te Deum for festal seasons, Benedictus es for ordinary, Benedicite for penitential seasons. Second canticle is a free-for-all.
And please remember this as well, and I am going to get him to start publishing some guidelines on some of this as some general more rule of thumbs for us to follow in the UECNA. But it is also your choice as the leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to, but what he's saying is a very good way to do it, and a very good way to follow. I kind of, if I'm doing it more on a regular basis in the church for doing morning prayer, I rotate between all of them each Sunday. I kind of...
You see, what I key off is the ancient breviaries. And the breviary uses the Te Deum on feasts. And there is a relic of that in custom in England where, right up until the 19th century, they tended to use the Te Deum in the festal seasons and the Benedicite in the, we don't have a third choice, and the Benedicite when it was violet or green, actually violet particularly, the penitential seasons, because in those days we didn't have liturgical colours in Anglicanism, beyond red or green for most of the year and black for Lent.
Now, when we get to the Apostles' Creed, now one of my things is since we say the Nicene Creed every Sunday in church for Holy Communion, I always say the Apostles' Creed because that gives us being able to learn all of our creeds. Again, we are teaching in our parishes. We are learning all of our creeds. That's the fundamental foundation of Anglicanism. But now, if you are in a congregation, and we still have this in Virginia, and still some groups do morning prayer 3 Sundays of the month and Holy Communion on the 4th, then, you know, you can rotate in or out what you choose. These are these choices, these things that you need to do, you get to make. But again, if you're going to change something up, announce what you're going to do. If you're always doing the Apostles' Creed, you can say, let us all say the Apostles' Creed together, or let us all please say Nicene Creed together. Please let them know what one you're choosing. I've given them multiple bulletins, and they are creating bulletins where to sit, where to stand, what's being said for this class for all the offices.
There's a little story I tell against myself on this point. One day I was in there, we were doing morning prayer, and somebody's cell phone got a text just as we're launching into the creed. And my brain skipped a groove, and I went, I believe in one God. We ended up doing the Nicene Creed that Sunday.
So again, these are things that you have to think about. Please, if you're going to go somewhere and visit or find out if they got a bulletin, they don't have a bulletin, but you are responsible for leading the group. The best way to lead that group is through making sure you do a bulletin for your services. Make sure that they know what you're going to do. You can come up with 3 generic bulletins. You don't have to write the Sunday on there if you don't want to. But please create a bulletin, and that's the way you're going to follow. So you can switch up whatever you're going to do in morning or evening prayer. Same way with switching up on the creeds. Have that listed in the bulletin. That way they know what you're doing. So don't catch people off guard. Let them know what you're doing so that they can follow along. If you will have to start announcing more stuff if you don't give them. If they don't know and you're going to change up, then you're going to leave the whole group hanging. Now you lost people. Okay?
Yes, it's a perfectly simple thing to do. Now we stand and say the Jubilate Day on page 50.
Correct. You're going to have to announce more as you go along.
That's one of the things at morning and evening prayer, you usually find yourself announcing the canticles. Particularly if you're like me and you change them up occasionally.
On the creed, Athanasian Creed,
Is not in the 1928 prayer.
correct. That's one of the glaring omissions.
And an extremely expected one for 1789.
Is Dr. Toon put that in his blue book?
Yeah, well, Dr. Toon did a lot of things in that blue book, some of which I do not approve of.
I know. I like the blue book. I use it every day for morning and evening prayer.
I'm getting so sick of the prayer book wars at the moment. I'm about that far off issuing an edict saying 1928 and shut the hell up.
But
I'm not kidding either.
Yeah.
the point is, and you bring up a good point, I always put that in a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if we're doing that
Especially
for
Trinity
Holy
Sunday.
Communion, I'll add it in after the Nicene Creed,
Mm-hmm.
just to put it in to make sure. Again, we're teaching. We need to know our creeds. It's not something you're going to do. I do the exhortation at the beginning, the first Sunday of every month.
Yes.
It is in there for a reason. They took it out and moved it to the back, and it was supposed to be hidden because we don't want to offend people while they be examining themselves before they come to the holy table.
What it comes down to, you get the desire around about 1914 to make sure the communion service is over in an hour and a quarter, which is an extremely difficult thing to do with bad Episcopal musical customs.
Well, let's not even get into the bad music. But let's stay on track because I want to finish this up here. Remember, you will say the collect for the day. All right, now that collect is the Sunday. So if you're doing this on a Sunday, it would be the collect for that Sunday. If you are doing it in that week, it is going back to that Sunday that precedes that week until you get to the next Sunday. So you're going to repeat that every single day.
Unless there is a holy day.
That holy day of obligation, or not an obligation, but and remember,
Holy day for which propers are provided in the prayer book.
and they are, and you can find those, and that's one thing.
And one slightly helpful thing about the American prayer book is every now and again they do note where the collect does not carry through the whole of a week. So for example, on the collect for Ash Wednesday, it has the note shall serve, it should have the note, let me check that it does.
I think it does.
It does.
Shall be said throughout Lent.
That's not the one I'm going for.
Oh,
Yeah, this collect is to be said every day in Lent after the collect appointed for the day until Palm Sunday. That's fine, but also you don't say the Quinquagesima collect after Ash Wednesday. It's an unnecessary doubling up.
Now, so you, and you know, you will find those days starting on 2/28, your holy days. You should also be able to find them on your ordo calendar, that will match up. But remember, as a priest, a deacon, licensed lay reader, it is your responsibility to know where they fall. Okay? So, you know, if you miss it, that's on you. You know, please, we were talking about prayers and thanksgiving, and I spent a whole hour basically on that, on how important prayers and thanksgivings are, and how every priest skips over these, and how they're probably the most valuable tool you have in your toolbox. And I went through all the different things. This is another one of those those little tools are right here. All right, you should be, you know, knowing these.
Be aware of the holy days.
Be aware of the holy days, and we're going to get into that during Holy Communion. Now, we do the collect for peace and the collect for grace. And I'm going to let the Archbishop address this as well. This is pretty much at that point where you can stop and do your sermon. Standard kind of rule of thumb. I know some guys wait. No, you wait till the end.
End of the office.
The end of the office, yes.
After the grace.
after the grace.
After the grace.
So it's, you have the grace, you make the announcements, you waste time singing a sermon hymn. Oh, I am death on any form of time wasting in the liturgy.
So,
Sermon hymn, sermon, then you do the collection, final collect, which I usually draw out of the section
Page 49.
49 and onwards. Occasionally I go on Quarry family prayer. Blessing, final hymn, and get out of there.
and that might even be something. I know a lot of guys that do it after there. That's kind of how I done it. But yes, afterwards, that's, you know, again, bad habits of Episcopalians.
Yeah, Americans never know what to do with the sermon of morning, evening prayer.
Yeah.
I think every church I've been in has had a go at trying to do it differently.
Well, and that's where, you know, I'm going to try to get him to put something together to give us some direct outline in the future to where we're teaching under one method and one way, because a lot of us bring bad habits from coming out.
Previous
So
traditions.
you're saying that you finish the whole service and then go into your sermon?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is, a lot of guys do that too. So
You're saying, where do you do yours at?
I do it right after the Collect for Grace before I start a prayer for the President of the United States. That's my closing.
Okay.
That's how I kind of finish up on there.
It works, it's just, you know, not something I'm used to. We always went through the whole office and then added the sermon on the end as an extra. Basically, when I was a kid, we went through a period where the tribe came out in series 1, 2, 3 ASB, referring to the 4 different iterations of alternative services we had in England. And we had a bad problem with roaming sermons at morning and evening prayer because Series 1 left them in the traditional place at the end of the service. Series 2 suggested after the third collect. Series 3 said after the second lesson. Which is why I've come along later in life and just gone, we're doing it this way.
Now, here's a couple things, and you brought up a good point, and I'm not here to talk about sermons all the way, but please remember your sermon needs to be on one of the readings of the day if you were doing evening prayer.
And morning and evening prayer are your opportunity to preach on the Old Testament. Hint, hint.
Hint,
Please.
please.
If you are, this gives you time to work on other styles besides your gospel and epistle reading. Now, I understand that if you were a new priest, new deacon, you are not like me and the bishop and Father Mike, and we have a trove of sermons that for us to be able to work on something new. So, if you need to slide a reading in to match if you like the gospel for the day and you're not doing Holy Communion and you already have your sermon or you've been working on that, we're not here to make young guys.
And there is permission to do that in the rubrics at the front of the prayer.
But you don't need to try to be like, I gotta kill myself. We're all working, just keep that in
Permission
mind.
to do what? I'm sorry. I didn't-
Change out the New Testament lesson for either the epistle or the gospel.
Yeah.
One of the things that drives me mad liturgy is people do not read the rubrics and the prefatory material. And as a result of that, you get an awful lot of wooden, unimaginative practice in the church. So, for example, if you go to page 8 in Roman numerals, any set of psalms or lessons appointed for the evening of any day may be read at the morning service, and any set of morning psalms or lessons may be read in the evening. I would say just be consistent on that. The start lessons provided for Sundays are particularly appropriate for use when morning prayer with one lesson precedes Holy Communion. Upon any Sunday or holy day, the minister may read the epistle or gospel of the day in place of the second lesson of morning or evening prayer. It's there in black and white, page 8 in Roman numerals. You are allowed to do it. A great comfort to those who have multiple churches and not much sermon writing time.
So, now let's talk just one little aspect, because I've talked about some variations. Some I'm probably not going to talk about because the bishop's here, and I don't want to get my head put in the guillotine. Don't want to put my head in the guillotine. Now, but Father Catlin, who is a great mentor of mine, and he was a very devout prayer book priest. Probably, he's like the Archbishop, probably, but just a little bit more on the, I can't use that word, stickler for following all things. And so, the 28 is not the 1979. We do not allow, which I do, do a psalm or do a Old Testament lesson in Holy Communion in the readings. Now you say, well, how can I add that in there and do that?
Quite right.
So you guys will start on page 7 at the bottom. Open our lips, O Lord. O Lord, open thou our lips. You're going to go down, then you will start the portions of the Psalm, the Gloria, the first lesson. So now I've just added my Psalm reading, I've just added my first lesson, then guess what? You can now jump into the very beginning of Holy Communion. It's found on page 67. What's that?
If I only got a canticle in there.
Yes, you can do today and one of them in there. Sorry about that, but
Very often, this is not a cheat, because I used to do that quite a bit in my old parish. Opening sentence, O Lord, open thou our lips, the 90th Psalm, Old Testament lesson, the short version of the Benedictus, the 4-verse version. It costs you about
Less than 5
6 minutes. And you get the Old Testament and the Psalm in. You also keep them chanting. Because one of the things we have lost in the Anglican tradition in America, since 1979 is the tradition of chanting. A lot of churches don't chant anymore because they're all, it's become McDonald's. And the McDonald's liturgy is slow mass with 3 lessons of the kiddie talk that takes an hour and a half, and I don't know why. It takes an hour and a half every Sunday. They won't pull their finger out and get on with the liturgy. But you've got your abbreviated matins, so they get the chanting in, they get their Old Testament, and they get their psalm. And you also keep something of the office tradition in a church that has one service. We do it here periodically when I have only one service. We're lucky here in that we've kept the offices going, but a lot of places it's a recovery operation. One of the things that frustrates me about the continuing church is they claim to use the 1928 Book of Common Prayer, but they actually only use about 120 pages out of the 600.
So, one that I'm not going to totally get into all the way without killing myself and falling on the sword, but I do a modified version of morning prayer with Holy Communion stuck on the end because
The Franken Mass.
And it's a Frankenstein Mass, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how I do it. I will let him tell you how he likes to do that. But I literally still jump into a part right before before the consecration.
If you want to know how I do it, it's quite straightforward. You start with, O Lord, open thou our lips, go through the whole of morning prayer to the grace, then you pick up the communion service that ye who do truly and earnestly repent of your sins. I do it that way around.
The thing that I do is for the general confession and the absolution in morning prayer, I use it in the same place, but I switch the one from Holy Communion. I go all the way to the end, and then I jump right in. I take a break and get everything prepped, and then I will jump in right on page, oops, let me flip to the right page, just to let you guys know.
76.
Yeah, and I go page 76. Here where comfortable words are, and I start there, and then I roll through the finish. So I don't want to say I'm right or wrong. I just how I
Honestly,
find
that's a
it.
bit of a mess.
What's that?
Honestly, that's surgically a bit of a mess because the comfortable words belong with the absolution, which is where Buttes have paired them
Yeah.
in 1536 in Strasbourg. Cranmer unfortunately gets them the wrong way round. Because
Why do you want to bring it up?
because Buttes have put them first. And in most Reformed liturgies, they do come first. The ones that haven't been mangled by Calvin or Knox, the other great mangler.
You're saying the comfortable words
Yeah,
before the,
absolution.
okay,
So the Strasbourg pattern is the Confiteor, which is the Lutheran one, the comfortable words, and then they actually use the Lutheran absolution.
okay.
And then carry on. For some reason, Cranmer flipped it, which he was having an off day.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things like that in the prayer book. But generally speaking, try and keep the business end of communion, which is the general confession, the introduction to the general confession through to the blessing together if you do a Franken Mass. If you don't do the Franken Mass that way, it's the whole of morning prayer, including the general confession from morning prayer. When you get to the end of it, you set the table and then you start at lift up your hearts, we lift them up unto the Lord.
So
Which is a borrowing from 1979 that I have heard of.
the
They used to do it at St. Thomas Fifth Avenue.
yeah, so there is ways to modify. I do really like to rotate around in my group every so often of doing morning prayer with Holy Communion. But, you guys, remember, you guys have the ability, you're doing things. I think, again, I'm putting stuff on the Archbishop, but we need to have a manual of proper procedures because, we've all gotten from different priests, different bishops, most of them nowhere near as educated as the Archbishop, like where all this stuff comes from. And so for us that aren't, as educated as him, we just kind of go off what other guys teach and do. And that's why we're having these sessions. So that, this is all about learning and how you guys can do things and make things work for you, but also the little hints. All right, so we're going to take a break. We are then going to move into our next session.